On November 1st through the 2nd, the Hearthstone Global Finals were played at BlizzCon, with 8 players competing to be the 2019 Global Champion. The eventual winner was the Chinese player VKLIOOOON'S, who got a lot of attention for her stellar play throughout the tournament. Today we want to take a look at 3 of her most interesting plays and discuss them a bit more in depth. These plays might not be the most flashy or exciting turns you've ever seen, but they are the crucial ones that led her to victory. In competitive Hearthstone, it is most often an innocuous-looking turn which will be the deciding factor in a top-level game. Before we get into the video, make sure to remember to subscribe to the channel for a variety of Hearthstone content. Now let's begin. In the first play we will look at, we see a perfect example of knowing when not to play around your opponent's tech cards and when to just go in. Against almost any Evolved Shaman, this turn is incredibly straightforward. You can make a 14/14 with Divine Spirit and Inner Fire, and set your opponent to 11 health, setting up lethal in the process. However, in this spot, Lion knows that Tom 60229 runs a copy of Plague of Murlocs in his deck. Not only that, but with Spirit of the Frog on board and the coin in hand, Tom will also be able to draw and play his Plague of Murlocs if he has either copy of Soul of the Murloc in hand as well. So why is it still right to make a big minion this turn, even though it is quite likely to be efficiently answered? Firstly, despite the fact that it is likely Tom has or can get his Plague of Murlocs now, it only becomes more likely in the future as he is going to draw a large portion of the spells in his deck with Spirit of the Frog next turn, whether Lion makes a 14/14 or not. Secondly, the upcoming turn is the most awkward turn for Tom to play his Plague of Murlocs. It blocks him from an evolve turn, as well as forcing Tom to use 3 of his 5 mana answering Lion's board, in the process removing his own Spirit of the Frog and preventing him from drawing the maximum number of spells. The final reason Lion's play is correct is that when Tom has Plague of Murlocs in hand, she is very behind no matter what. She has no way to bait out the Plague of Murlocs with a less threatening board, so she is forced to commit now. Once you fall behind on board as combo priest, the game is generally over, so Lion correctly recognized that her best chance of beating Plague of Murlocs was to use the random Murlocs she was going to get from it to maintain board control for 1 or 2 more turns. This allowed her to push across just enough damage to end the game before Tom wrestled the board away from her, which would not have been possible if she had not cashed in the 15 damage earlier on turn 4. Next, we have an example of Lion knowing when to ignore the general principles of her deck in order to address a unique situation. On this turn, there is a 1 in 3 chance that the coin draws her evolve and wins the game instantly, but once she misses that, she has a tough decision. Her hand is full of synergy-reliant cards which aren't great on their own. She has a pair of Bloodlust which require a large board to be effective, 2 Desert Hares, and 2 Mogu Flesh Shapers which usually need to be comboed with evolve effects, and Thunderhead and Voltaic Burst which combo with each other. In addition, she knows that if she plays Voltaic Burst, it will draw her Soul of the Murloc, as that is the only 2-cost spell she runs. With all this information, it would make sense to play Thunderhead and Voltaic Burst, would it not? The cards work well together, and playing only Voltaic Burst could strand the Thunderhead in hand for a long time. In addition, this line does not prevent your Mogu Flesh Shapers to clear the opponent's Thunderhead, so that isn't an issue either. The casters, who are top players themselves, also suggested taking this line. However, VKLIOOOON'S opted to go Voltaic Burst, Hero Power, Mogu, Mogu, Soul of the Murloc. In order to understand this play, we need to do a bit of hand reading. On the previous turn, Phenomeno spent his 4 mana playing his own Thunderhead with no Overload card to accompany it. What does this tell us? Well, first of all, we know he does not have his biggest power turn, Desert Hare plus Evolve, as that would have certainly been played instead. This information means that Lion knows she can be a lot less greedy with her own cards, as she is not trying to beat a top quality hand. Additionally, when a Thunderhead is played without an Overload card, it often signifies one of 2 things. 1, there are no Overload cards in the hand, or 2, there is a second Thunderhead in the hand. As viewers, we know that in this case there were no more Overload cards, but what if Pheno's next turn had been Thunderhead, an Overload card, and Evolve? What if he had had a Sea Giant or a Mogu Flesh Shaper as well? By playing Soul of the Murloc and by only trading off one of her 1/1s, Lion was able to set up a board which another Thunderhead wouldn't decimate. An additional note to think about is the 2 Bloodlust in Lion's hand. The card itself is oftentimes hard to use, and in this case especially, it is necessary to make use of them before they end up stranded in the hand. Since there is no reasonable line in which Lion can avoid overloading herself on this turn, the best option is to set up as sticky a board as possible to set up for a Bloodlust on turn 6. Overall, this turn 4 from Lion is a good lesson in hand reading, knowing when to break up your 2 and 3 card combos, and trying trying to make your clunky cards as playable as possible. The final play we will look at comes from Game 1 of Lion's semifinal against Cassie. On turn 4, Lion has a slight board lead and has a hand made up of several buff spells, an injured Blade Master, and a beaming sidekick, as well as High Priest Amit, her best card in this matchup against Quest Shaman. The general belief about the combo Priest versus Quest Shaman matchup is that it is Priest favored, and this is largely due to High Priest Amit alone. This card does a great job of exploiting Quest Shaman's greatest weakness, its lack of single target removal. The only proactive removal tools which Quest Shaman possesses are Sandstorm Elemental and Weaponized Wasp, and neither of those come close to dealing with a board full of minions with 7 or more health. With some hands, Lion's play would be easy this turn: drop High Priest Amit, cast Topsy-Turvy on Cassie's deceased Vulture, and trade in her injured Talvir. There is no possible way for Cassie's deck to answer the High Priest Amit in this situation, so if Lion had to follow up to it, the game would be over. However, in this spot, Lion simply does not have that follow-up. Injured Blade Master is essentially unaffected by Amit's effect since it takes damage anyway. And while Beaming Sidekick is great with Amit, it is not threatening enough to worry Cassie on its own, especially without a Divine Spirit in her hand. Now let's take a look at the alternative play Lion decides to make. There are some immediate upsides to this play. It protects injured Talvir, which is always important, since making every minion count is a vital part of finding success with Combo Priest. It also allows for the use of more arms on a mid-range sized minion, which is making a value trade, which is the ideal way to make use of this card. Additionally, in this case you are using Topsy-Turvy to protect a minion, rather than just to make a trade, a much higher value use of that card. So what are the downsides to Lion's line? Well, the most obvious one is that it forces you to invest 4 mana into High Priest Amit on a future turn, but there are a couple others as well. First, it is always unfortunate to be forced to break up High Priest Amit and Beaming Sidekick, as they work so well together. And second, without developing Amit, the Inner Fire in hand is a dead card on the next turn, which further limits the amount of flexibility Lion has with her already small hand size. The thing which pushes Lion's play over the top is that she's protecting her win condition. If she were to develop Amit this turn, it will not be able to be cleared, but it could certainly be cleared over the course of 2 turns. Since there is another strong play which fights for board as well, and also keeps a taunt around to hide the Amit behind next turn, it is better to play it safe in this case. The biggest lesson you can take away from this play is that when identifying your win condition, you should also identify ways to make that win condition more likely to come about. If you are in a desperate spot when you feel very behind, you should play to your win condition, even if it's unlikely, and play out your High Priest Amit when you get the chance. But you should also be aware when you are not in a desperate spot, you are able to do something like Lion did here, where you can take an extra turn to increase the likelihood of putting your win condition together. We hope that these plays have been an interesting look into the mind of a competitive Hearthstone player. VK Lion played fantastically over the course of this tournament, and congratulations to her for winning the 2019 Global Finals. If you enjoyed the video and wish to see more content like this, make sure to like it and let us know in the comments below. Also make sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up with all of our Hearthstone content. See you next time!